Hello, I'm John Rutherford, Sheriff of Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida.
On the November 4th ballot, there's Amendment 2 to the Florida Constitution titled Florida Right to Medical Marijuana. There are opponents and proponents on this amendment. Please describe some opponents' views.
Listen, I'm opposed to Amendment 2 for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'll begin with, is the deceptive language that is actually found within the amendment itself. If you look at the ballot summary, it will tell you that this is for medical marijuana for debilitating medical conditions. And in fact, the sheriffs of Florida have said through our association that we support medical marijuana for a debilitating medical disease. And in fact, we passed Charlotte's Web this last legislative session, which is an extract of medical marijuana for patients who have intractable epilepsy, cancer, other truly debilitating medical conditions, or are suffering end-of-life pain and need that extract. Now, the problem is when you read the definition within the amendment, when you go down to B1 in the definition, and I will read to you exactly what the amendment says, and that is, it begins the definition of debilitating medical condition with diseases that we have absolutely no problem with. For example, cancer, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C, ALS, Crohn's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis. Those are all truly debilitating medical conditions that people will have to endure pain and suffering for their entire lifetime. We understand that. We want to help those. However, here's where the deceptive language comes in on this amendment. It goes on to say, or other conditions for which a physician believes that the medical use of marijuana would likely outweigh the potential health risk for a patient. Now, folks, that very clearly says that doctors will determine who will be able to get medical marijuana and for what condition, and it can be any condition. So we will have, everywhere that Florida had a pill mill, we will now have a pot shop. I don't trust doctors to make that decision, not all of them, and here's why. I saw the pill mills where they were passing out hydrocodone and oxycodone like it was cotton candy. And we do not need that with medical marijuana. There are people who are truly suffering. We need good medical marijuana laws. But this amendment to the Constitution, Amendment number 2, is not that. I have heard the proponents of this bill talk about all of the need, the efficacy of medical marijuana, and I've seen those cases myself. In fact, the Florida legislature saw those cases where medical marijuana has truly been beneficial to someone suffering a truly debilitating medical condition. However, that is not what Amendment 2 is about. Amendment 2 is about any medical condition for anybody that a doctor decides he wants to give it to. And, by the way, I'll read this also, under public policy within the amendment, it states, the medical use of marijuana by a qualifying patient or personal caregiver is not subject to criminal or civil liability. I'll stop there, but it goes on to talk about sanctions. A physician licensed in Florida should not be subject to criminal or civil liability or sanctions under Florida law for issuing a physician certification to a person diagnosed with a debilitating medical condition in a manner consistent with this section. Now, what that means is when a doctor gives it to someone for tennis elbow, you can't sue him. And when he goes out and kills somebody in a car crash and he's on medical marijuana, you can't sue the doctor. And so there are other issues with this. Folks, listen. Amendment 2 creates a caregiver concept in the state of Florida for medical marijuana, where if you go to a physician or you go to purchase medical marijuana, you either have to have your parents' permission if you're underage, or your caregiver can pick it up. Now, what that means is if you're underage, you could actually go to a distribution center, a certified distribution center, without your parents' consent, but with your doctor's permission and in his order qualifying you as a patient, and your caregiver can then take that, go to a certified distribution center, and pick up medical marijuana for your underage child. That is going to be a problem. And that's why I'm opposed to it. We're going to have marijuana in every backpack, in every high school and middle school in Duval County and across the state of Florida, and I'm adamantly opposed to it. I've heard people say in opposition to this amendment that it's actually the first step toward, legalizing and recreational use of marijuana. My answer is no. This is the step that will provide recreational marijuana because patients will be able to receive it for any condition that a doctor wants to give it to them. And so I'm adamantly opposed to Amendment 2. I encourage you to vote this down. And let me conclude with this. There's two ways to create law within our state. You can pass a law through the state legislature, which is the common way of doing it, or you can pass a law and actually have it put right into the Constitution. As you all know, we have the situation where we've passed constitutional amendments that were fairly ridiculous. The whole pig thing a while back that was passed through the state of Florida in our Constitution. We don't need to do that with medical marijuana. Let's let this go through the legislative process, vote this down, go through the legislative process, just like Charlotte's Web, the marijuana extract, just went through the legislature with tremendous support from not only sheriffs, but also our legislators. And that's why it passed, and Governor Scott signed it into law just recently. So let's do it so that we vet this issue properly. We do not need to use constitutional amendments where the wording has been drafted in a very deceptive and I think devious method. So please vote no on Amendment 2 in November.